My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of What is a Woman. Now, I talk movies on YouTube. I try to avoid politics as much as possible, but sometimes you just can't avoid it, and that is definitely the case with this movie. Now, Matt Walsh is my favorite podcaster. I do listen to him on a daily basis. I think he's funny, intelligent, well-spoken, and he's someone who I do genuinely look up to. Like, he doesn't just talk the talk, but he actually does go out there and try to make a difference. And because of that, I do have genuine respect for the guy. And when I heard he was making a documentary on this subject, I couldn't wait to see it, and after watching it, I can say that it indeed lives up to my expectations because this might be the most important documentary ever made. This is an absolute must-watch for everyone. Even if you're not a documentary fan, like I'm not, you should still watch this movie because I think it's an absolute essential viewing. As soon as it was done, I texted my mom, like, you guys have to watch this, and so should my brothers, because I really do think this is a movie that should hit as many people as possible. I think what's going on in the world today regarding this trans issue is pure evil. It really is. It's not grounded in truth, reality, or science. It's based in pure narcissism, and it's oozed its way into every bit of our society, and that's definitely on display here. Instead of teaching kids to love themselves now, we're telling kids to reject themselves and to mutilate themselves. And the fact that is socially accepted now is just absolutely horrific, and you definitely feel the impact of that here. And there's even one point where Matt Walsh is talking to someone in this movie, and he's talking about the truth, and the guy is offended that he's talking about what's true. That's how far we've gone. And this movie makes you realize just how deep it goes, how it's infiltrated every part of our society, with the politicians, with schools, with the medical experts, everywhere, everything. You go to a doctor's office now, you've got 100 options for gender. What the hell? They want to know why no one trusts the medical experts anymore because of nonsense like this, of them putting their own politics and beliefs ahead of the basic truths. It makes you just realize how fragile our entire society is. And you really feel that here. People go into these schools and get brainwashed and indoctrinated into this insane cult that doesn't make an ounce of sense. None. There's even one point where he asks a professor, define woman without using the word woman. And he's just looking around trying to think of a definition, and he can't, and you can just see his brain breaking. This movie also explores how Hollywood pushes it. There's a movie with Liam Neeson where he plays Alfred Kinsey, and it makes Kinsey out to be a good guy where he was anything but. He was an evil psychopath. And that Hollywood praises him. It also shows how it's pushing this gender ideology through all the movies and TV shows. Like, everybody knows it now. Everybody's getting sick of it now. It's everywhere. I don't think people actually understand how people can put their worldviews in movies and use that to get other people to think like them. Because that is definitely what Hollywood has been doing these past few years. The amount of this stuff in movies, shows, and video games has increased like 6,000%. Even in movies and shows and games I love. My favorite story ever is Last of Us 2. There is a trans character in that game. I wish that character wasn't trans, but that said, that is not the point of the game. The point of the game is sympathy, and you do feel bad for that character who is suffering from gender dysphoria. There you go, I said it. I have a speech impediment. And that's also the case with a show that I love, Euphoria. That's even in this movie. I love the show, it's incredibly well shot, but there is a trans character in it, and I wish that wasn't the case. But that said, they show each character as a broken individual, and they allow you to sympathize for them, but it doesn't showcase their worldview and make it out to be super good. No, it just shows these characters how they are, and Jules suffers from gender dysphoria. But just the fact that it's absolutely everywhere does drive me mad. The place I go to the gym at has a giant rainbow crosswalk out in front. I hate that. Just stop it. I love how this movie also explores how it got started with John Money and Alfred Kinsey, and how it has evolved over time and has seen a significant increase over the past few years with the rise of social media and the internet. I thought that element was really well explored and quite impactful. And I think it's just important to talk about the fact that kids are getting chemically castrated. The same thing they're doing to pedophiles, they're doing to kids. It's evil. It is pure evil. There are parents who are losing custody of their kids if they don't go along with their kids' gender dysphoria. Like, I live in Canada, and some of the laws we have in place right now are absolutely insane. Like, if you have a kid and he's a boy, and your son says, I'm a girl, and you say, no son, you're a boy, you could actually be put in jail for that. You could actually lose custody of your kid because of that. And we're starting to see a rise in cases like that. People can lose their jobs and livelihood if they speak out against this insane mindset. It's absolutely batshit crazy. And it's just normalized in every aspect of our society. When it's pure evil. And the fact that we've gone this far within the past few years, I'm terrified for what the future lies. How much worse can this get? Because I truly don't know. There's this one person in this movie, Scott Nugent, and he's talking about how he did end up caving in and got surgery even though he knows it's not based in truth. And there's one line he says, it's in the trailer and he said in the movie, and it's just like, they got me at 42. Your kids don't stand a chance. And it's fucking horrific. Like, this movie filled me with rage. There was one point where I just screamed fuck, because it's infuriating. If you speak out against it, you get called transphobic, you get called a bigot. It's fucking insane. You have to tell people to reject themselves, to drug themselves, and to mutilate themselves in order for them to accept themselves. And if you don't partake in that, then you're a terrible person who should lose their job, lose their kid, lose everything. It's fucking sick. That said, even though this movie does fill you with rage, it is legitimately heartbreaking in moments. And it does have some funny moments to lighten the mood. Like when Matt Walsh is at the Women's March, it cracked me up pretty good. I also like how this movie slightly touches on certain things, like how there's always this group of people. And I used to be this kind of person who was just like, well, I don't believe in it, but just let people live their lives. And how you can see the damaging effect that mindset has. I haven't had that mindset in years, and thank goodness I grew up, because I can't believe I ever thought like that. I never bought into it, but I was just like, let people live their lives. But no, I don't think like that anymore. You know? And there's even one moment where Matt Walsh goes to Africa and he talks with the tribe there, and they just think that we're insane. And just the way that community is, despite all the issues they have, just to see them living their lives the way that they're intended to, I thought that section was actually really impactful. And one other thing I want to mention is the fact that we've got all these dudes playing in female sports, and how it does affect the females there, and how they are naked guys in their locker room. It's sick and it's gross. Like, I am definitely not a feminist, but compared to most feminists these days, I'm a feminist by default. I don't like that label. But one thing that I do like about this documentary as well is that, well, one thing about documentaries is that they can be easily manipulated. But it's very clear here that Matt Walsh asks them basic questions, and you can just see the person getting interviewed digging themselves into a deeper and deeper hole. It's them who's damning themselves. And this movie is very well structured. It'll talk about the guys playing in sports in one section. It'll go into the politicians in one, go after the teachers in another, go after the medical experts. It's very well organized. And at about like the 50-minute mark, like up until that point, it's disturbing, but it's also funny. But there's a point where it starts taking itself very serious, and you can feel the weight of everything going on. And by the end of this movie, slight spoiler alert, but nobody can define what a woman is. All these people have this world view and they can't even define a woman. It's absolutely insane. It just shows you how nonsensical it really is. Now, as much as I really did enjoy this documentary, I do have some issues with it. Some of it is regarding the scripted stuff. There's not a lot, but the movie begins with some narration by Matt Walsh, and I just don't think it landed for me. I didn't find it to be all too funny, and yeah, it didn't start the movie off on the best of foot, and the first act of this movie has way too much slow motion of Matt Walsh just walking down the street in slow motion, and it definitely gets overdone. I also didn't like the way this movie ended. The movie ends on this cute little joke, and I feel like it should have ended on something very hard-hitting that allows the movie to stay with you long after the credits roll. I kind of wish they went that approach. And one other issue with this movie is an issue that I was always going to have with it, without a doubt, but it's the fact that, like I said earlier, I'm not a fan of documentaries. They don't grab me like most movies do. I prefer it when movies have characters that go through some sort of an arc and have a really strong story or have some sort of style. And this movie doesn't have any of that. It is a very one-note movie. It's about one thing, but I do think it approaches that one thing from many different angles. But at the end of the day, it is a series of interviews loosely stringed together. It's a very good series of interviews loosely stringed together, but all I'm saying is that if I have to pick between this movie or a bunch of other movies that I love, I'll most likely pick one of the other ones. This movie does everything it sets out to do incredibly well. It's just not my favorite kind of movie to watch, if that makes sense. But this is a movie I definitely recommend. When I said at the start that it's one of the most important documentaries ever made, I really do mean that. Just the fact that this worldview lacks any bit of cohesion or reality or truth or just anything at all, and it's made its way into every bit of our society, and it's attacking everyone on some sort of level, especially kids, it's truly sickening. And I think people need to watch this movie, and people need to have the courage to stand up against it. People need to have the courage to speak out, and I'm so glad that Matt Walsh is. I think he has the perfect personality to carry this movie. I think there's some interviews here that are just going to stay with me for a very long time. I think it's powerful. I think it fills you with rage when needed. It's emotional when needed. It's funny when needed. It does everything it sets out to do incredibly well. And once again, just seek out this movie because it's a movie that needs to reach a wider audience. It really does. So I'm going to go ahead and give What is a Woman a 7 out of 10. Okay, have you seen What is a Woman? Do you know what a woman is? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin out.